Now we have the man himself. I think that's why everyone's so excited to bring Joe here. Now we know.
It's because I don't believe in rules. That's the thing.
And that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
How did you get in there? How did you get into museum world?
My childhood and my summers, I would spend the full time. His dad would bring us to work and we would just run around the Science Center all day. I always kind of kept this thing in my head about museums and science centers. So when I moved to New York, I moved there with my cousins and I was working in the film industry. There was this random period where I drove Guy Ritchie around to make a Corvette commercial for the Super Bowl. And then at one point, I remember we were on set and Guy was like, oh, I need this CD. Go get this CD from my wife. It's the song I want to use in the commercial. And so then I had to go there, and it was like totally insane to be in Madonna's fucking apartment in Manhattan, right? Like fucking Madonna's apartment, not just some apartment in Manhattan. And then I go up and she's like, make sure and tell him he doesn't lose my CD. So then I was in New York building sets and scenery. So I was doing the film industry thing, which led into building sets and scenery for photo shoots and blah, blah, blah. So I built sets for Annie Leibovitz and any number of other big photographers. And then, ended up moving upstate, kind of planned on being a carpenter, but then I eventually got a job building this exhibits. So, yeah, that's somehow the journey.
How long have you been in the company?
Technically, my first day in the company was January 7, 2018.
How did that happen?
So I just happened to check LinkedIn one day and saw Hüttinger was hiring for an exhibit developer. First interview was online. I remember walking out of my bedroom where I had done the interview and said to my wife, I'm pretty sure that I have this job. So we really should decide pretty honestly if we really want to move to Germany or not.
And what was your job before?
In the US, I was working as a one-person exhibit team in a small children's museum. When I first started in there, the place was not doing so great. There was no budget, no nothing. It was really starting from absolute nothing to when I started, we had maybe 10, 15,000 visitors a year, and when I left, it was 80,000.
What do you think about Nuremberg, and would you stay here for the next 10, 20 years?
I think so. Yeah. So I don't know. I like Nuremberg. This feels like my city, right? I live here. This is my place. Now my kids are totally fully integrated. We've asked them if they would ever move back to the States, and basically they've said no. My son is playing football, and I still like the idea that he might go play soccer in the States in college, because even a mediocre German soccer player is better than most very good American soccer players. But yeah, no, I like it. We'll stay here. Yeah, Nuremberg's great.
When you're accepting exhibits to build, how deep do you look into the customer language, what you just tell?
Yeah, so the first and most important point, in my opinion, is that you have to really you have to know your visitors, and you have to know how they learn and how what they respond to with their learning.
So it depends what age are the visitors, which continent, which country.
Totally. So all of that is super, super, super important. So we do prototype things at Hüttinger and test things with visitors in our workshop, and that's one way to learn something. But in my opinion, that's not really how you're going to learn how every exact visitor is going to respond to something, because the kids here in Nuremberg are not the same as kids in Tbilisi, are not the same as kids in Moscow, are not the same as kids in Shanghai, or the same as kids in New York, right? Every kid in any place is different, and even every place is different within that place. So you can have very different kinds of visitors I think there's 4 or 5 science centers in New York City, and each one of them will have different people that show up, different kinds of people, and people looking for different things.
And what is the difference between US and Germany?
Well, the biggest difference is that in the US, this idea of interactive learning is somehow kind of built into the mindset. So from the age of 2 years old, kids know what to do. Whereas in Germany, there are far, far less interactive museums. And so even here in Nuremberg, we'll see kids come through Hüttinger who really don't know what they're supposed to do.
How do you wish for museums to develop in the future?
For me, every style of museum is great and important, and my real wish would be to see a better convergence of styles. So that natural history museums wouldn't be so focused on just showing objects, or art museums wouldn't just be so focused on look at my art, and that science centers wouldn't just be so focused on here's an interactive thing, that all these concepts could somehow come together, because I really think there's many different types of learners in any environment, and when you can really have something for everyone or every type of a learner, then you can capture a greater volume. This Germanisches Museum is a nice example because their collection is so vast. So that's like, for me, one of the closer, like, kind of typical museums that could start to bridge that gap sooner than many others, right? If you look at like the Met in New York or something, we are art and we are a collection of art and we will never go beyond that. But Germanisches is a bit like the Met in that the collection is super diverse. It's not just art in the sort of paintings on the wall or something, there's also sort of historical objects. But if you chose to dive into the science behind those historical objects, you know, like I have small kids who I'm constantly dragging to all these places, and if they had interactive science to play with in that same environment, then they're for sure going to be more interested. That's, I think, for me, the sort of real future of where things need to go, or else those places will just die. But, you know, the science centers should do a better job of also talking about culture. If you've got a science center where you're challenging kids to think outside the box, use creative thought processes to explore and expand, and then in the next gallery is artwork, they'll automatically kind of start to put those two thoughts together. It's just like this scaffolding effect of learning, where if you're already thinking about science in a hands-on way, and you're not touching the art, you're thinking about how is it made, right? As opposed to just saying, why should I care about that painting on the wall?
To build outside of what a museum is,
Yeah.
put a little bit extra, and then a little bit more, and a bit more, then it's a chain reaction. You got something amazing, an amazing product where everyone want to go there.
I really do believe that this is the real, in my opinion, benefit of the American mentality. In my opinion, the strongest thing about an American mentality is that we are not beholden to rules of the past necessarily. And while that can be problematic, it can also be the kind of thing that creates AI. People don't feel that they have to do it the way everybody else did it, so they can break rules and try something new and different, and then they invent, create, conceptualize new ways of doing things. And even like, you know, Axel and I have this whole thing, like when we're traveling, where we like to go out and eat, and you'll see it in these American restaurants. They have a chef who somehow studied in Italy but is from, I don't know, Korea. And so then they'll put those two cultures together and create some kind of crazy food that's so fucking good. That's the point of what I'm saying about like this museum idea. You can't like push boundaries and change things if you're not willing to think somehow outside the norm.